Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Grunge Bible Podcast. We're excited to record another one. My name is Ethan Shalloway and I got Chris Malone on the other side. How are we doing, Chris?
I'm doing great today, Ethan. It's a nice spring day here. April's finally here. The weather's warming up. Get to talk a little bit of music and sharing all of that good stuff with you. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. It's a beautiful day here in Alabama. It's like 80 degrees. My roommate just made some coffee, so I'm all fueled up. I'm jacked up, and I'm really looking forward to talking and making these pods. I'm a little surprising to me that I love it so much.
I know.
Is that weird?
It's a little weird, but I feel the same way. You know, the more we started to do it, the more I've begun to enjoy it. And I just assumed that we would automatically just be terrible at this, and maybe we are. Right. You know, that's for everyone else to decide. So if we're bad at this, let us know. But we got a couple things that we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into that, I just wanted to thank at the beginning of the episode, I wanted to thank Drew McFadden. Drew serves as our producer, and he's also responsible for the intro and the outro music for this podcast. So I'm sure, you know, we'll be hearing more from Drew as time goes on, and maybe we'll get some insight into the intro and the outro song. I know some people have been speaking about that.
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking about it, which is great.
Yeah,
that's really great. He did a killer job.
Absolutely. So today is April 7th, 2021. So, you know, the last year has been really strange, but additionally, there's a strange day at the beginning of April, and that's April 1st. And we're going to have to talk about that, I think, at the end of this episode. Oh, yeah. If you follow our page, you know there were some weird things going on April 1st, but we'll get into that.
I'm excited to talk about that and brief that. But but we did have a really strange year, obviously, and we just had the anniversary of when the pandemic hit and all the news broke. And Chris, I know you brought up this idea for the pod that we would kind of go back and talk about music over the past year, and not necessarily what came out and what artists were doing, but how it affected the people in the pandemic and the people that were having to isolate or just not be around other people for the majority of their time. And
yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty interesting. Music is such a powerful thing. That's why we are here today and talking. So, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, we'll get into it. And kind of thinking about this past year and everything. And I think regardless of what period of life you're in, there's always music that kind of serves as the soundtrack, to your life and to certain events in your life. I mean, if you think back to when you were a little kid, or maybe when you were a teenager in high school or in college, or, when you have children or whatever, like, you can always kind of associate the music you were listening to at the time with the events. And I think, certainly as we get further and further away from 2020 and the pandemic and everything, that's going to ring true. But, we all had a lot of time to ourselves this past year. And I know, at least for me personally, I did spend a large majority of that time to myself listening to music. And, there were no live shows to go to. There were a lot of great artists putting out a lot of great music last year, but, there were no shows, and you kind of lost that communal aspect. But I definitely think despite that, people were able to kind of lean on music, throughout the tough times. And I think a lot of us probably last 12, 13 months were probably, some of the tougher periods of life that we've had to go through. And, music was definitely there. One thing I want to get your opinion on actually is, Somebody sent us a direct message maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was a great question, and it was, do you think that sad music helps or hurts, when you're struggling? And
Yes.
And I think a lot of us probably were struggling the past 12 months, and I'd be interested to get your opinion on this one. Do you think it helps or it hurts?
Yeah, I think I saw that, and I think we've actually talked about this too, because, and especially during the pandemic, we had our sad boy hours, and you have the late night listen sessions, and I remember not to get ahead of all the stories, but we always would text each other when we're listening, and we text each other when we're when we were trying to not be sad. It's like, I can't help but listen to these songs, and it's like, Chris, you got to stop listening to these songs.
You got to stop listening to A Long December by the Counting Crows.
Yes, or shoot, I'm blanking on it. By Third Eye Blind. What's the song that we always
Motorcycle Drive By?
Motorcycle Drive By. So, do I think it helps or hurts? I think that it has to hurt a little bit. Like it's just it really gets you to be really emotional, and it just depends how you can work with those emotions. Because sometimes people, when they get emotional, it digs them deeper, and sometimes when people get emotional, it's kind of a release, and it allows them to kind of get it all out.
Right.
So I think that it has a lot to do with what kind of person you are and how you deal with your emotions. If you're just kind of like a scream into the pillow, and once you scream into that pillow, you're good. Or if it's something that like kind of piles on and just kind of pushes you down. So, me personally, I think it helps. I like to listen. I like when I'm feeling, if I ever catch myself really in the feels or really emotional, I do like to take advantage of that and kind of, stick it with a little bit of juice of the music and kind of go to wherever it takes me, and then I can come out of it and be okay with it. But that's not the case for everybody. What do you think about it for yourself?
It's funny because I very much remember there was a group chat between you, me, and then your brother, and we were always sending Motorcycle Drive by Third Eye Blind. And somebody really ought to create some sort of limit control on your streaming services. Like you know how there's like a time limit that you can put on Instagram or on YouTube. It's like you've reached your viewpoint capacity, like you can't watch anymore until tomorrow. Like somebody's got to do that for these sad songs, because there were definitely some points on where the sad boy hours were on repeat, or they were working double time all throughout the night, all throughout the days. But I'm pretty firmly on the side that I think sad music or music that kind of brings out those emotions in a weird way. I definitely think it helps. Because I think to get through those times, you have to feel those emotions at their fullest. And I mean, a lot of the sad music, certainly the stuff that we were listening to at the time, like, I mean, it's very clearly salt in the wound. And I think the last 12 months, a lot of us were going through things, and maybe lost loved ones, or maybe our careers changed, or maybe people that were in our lives are no longer in our lives, or you break up with somebody, or maybe all of those things happened in a short period of time, all at once. And music's always one of the places that you can turn to, but in the interim, it definitely makes it worse. My mind kind of goes to me, and I know you, and we both love Tiny Desk concerts, right? Those are some of the pinnacle moments. And there's a really good one. I think it's probably like 4 or 5 years old now, but Car Seat Headrest did a Tiny Desk concert, and one of the top comments on the video there, it's "Car Seat Headrest got me through a tough time in my life by making it worse." And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because when you're in the moment, and for example, if you're down in the dumps or whatever, and you put on Jar of Flies, or you put on Nutshell, or you put on Nothing Man by Pearl Jam, or any of the sad songs, The Day I Tried to Live by Soundgarden, whatever it may be. I mean, it definitely kind of exasperates those emotions a little bit, but I kind of think it's unfortunately necessary. That you can't really, if you block it out, it's just gonna come on further down the road. And
it's kind of like when you're with somebody and you get to talk to them when they're going through a tough time, and they're like, "Thanks, man. I need to get that off my chest." It's like when you don't have somebody else to kind of bounce ideas off of and kind of vent to. You listen to music, and then you're kind of getting that solo venting session, and it is like a relief, because even though you maybe not verbalizing it, having the music kind of oddly, it's like having a conversation. It's it's having a little bit of an interaction. And I think it's the same way. It's kind of the venting.
It's like
getting it out there.
It's like a companion. And I think the last year, where so many of us were in physical isolation, for me, for example, like I lived alone, so I didn't live in the same house with anybody, and we were quarantining and whatnot. I spent a lot of time with my music, but in particular, I went through the biggest Mark Lanigan phase. So his memoir had come out.
I remember this.
Sing Backwards and Weep. So I had gotten that. I was reading that. And then when I wasn't reading it, I was listening to his music. So I was listening to The Winding Sheet, Whiskey for the Holy Ghost. And then when he had just come out with an album called Straight Songs of Sorrow. So if you can imagine, that record was not sunshine and roses. And I was listening to so much of that stuff, and it was so heavy, and it was so weirdly complimentary to like a tough time in my life. But I think it's necessary that it's got to be there, and just like what you said, sometimes like you just got to talk to somebody or just vent or just air your sorrows, and music can kind of do that for you. I think a lot of people, something that people say about music a lot of times is like, this musician or this individual was able to say what I was feeling when I wasn't even able to do that, And I think that's a large part of why I think it's helpful in the long run, because sometimes we're not able to articulate how we feel, but you can listen to a song or an artist or an album and it's able to just lay it out absolutely perfectly.
Yeah. It's funny that we talk about the Spotify review or Spotify year in review a lot. Yeah. And it's funny that you're talking about like a cap to certain songs. And I remember when we got those reviews at the end of the year, you look back and you're like, I think you're like, holy shit, Ethan, like, I don't know if I was okay this past summer. Like, you look back and you're like, and you look at it and you're like surprised of how much you may have listened. I think that, it's always interesting to look back in hindsight too, but, do you think that you can kind of get caught listening to too much of sad music, I guess? Do you think sometimes you can get in like a cycle where it just kind of get...
Yeah, I definitely think you can. And there's sometimes there can be this weird comfort in just being down. And especially like if you're going through something, like I think at times it's easier and it doesn't take as much emotional energy to just kind of sit and dwell in it, as opposed to, do what you can to move forward. And I definitely think there's a little bit of that. And that's where it can get kind of iffy, with the music, because, say if you're down about something, you want to make a change, that you probably should make a change, or, different aspects of your life that you'd like to improve to start to get back on a better path. But, if you're still listening to those things, I think sometimes it can kind of keep you there. But it's funny that you mentioned, I remember the Spotify Wrapped year in review. So I just
had a lot of Lanigan on there.
Yeah, so I just pulled up my top list, and my number one song was Blues Run the Game by Jackson C. Frank. Then it was El Sol by Mark Lanigan, Dollar Bill by the Screaming Trees, Untogether by Courtney Barnett and Kurt Vile, another Mark Lanigan song, Strange Religion, and then some Jerry Cantrell solo stuff. Julian Baker was on there, and then Elliott Smith. So a lot of these artists are rather well known for their exasperated songs.
Yeah, two Lanigan, a few sad girl stuff.
Yeah, it was certainly up there. But yeah, I definitely think sometimes music might be able to keep you there. What do you think about that? That was actually a really good question.
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in good energy brings good energy, and in the same breath, like bad energy brings bad energy. And I think that people really feed off of who they're around and what they're putting into themselves. So I do think that like if you're listening to really upbeat stuff all the time, sometimes it's hard to not be upbeat or be a little bit more energetic. So I think the same can go the other way, where if you're really listening to, say, angry stuff, like I remember my boss once said, and this is really interesting, you'll like this. He put on Primus, he put on My Name Is Mud.
Okay.
And we're listening, and I was like, oh, you like these guys? Like, yeah. He's like, I don't listen to them too much anymore. He's like, I used to listen to them when I was really angry, and it just made me more angry. And I thought about that, and I was like, that's really interesting. Like, there's music that makes people angry, and like people, like you can listen to certain things and be like, what? Like they're so mad, they're so this and that, and it wears on people. So and like it can go for almost every emotion. I think that there's like, happy, sad, angry, even like intimate, or like these certain things can kind of form you. So yeah, I think that that's why I like having a diverse music listening capability, I guess, where I like to be able to bounce around, because you don't want to live too much in certain areas, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. It is tough though, because I think sometimes, I think we've probably all been there where, maybe you're not feeling the best, and like that's one of the first things you might try to do. It's like, oh, let me throw on my summer driving playlist or something, and like sometimes it works, but then sometimes it just doesn't do it for you. Sometimes it can't be forced, and you can't really trick your brain or whatever into
No, of course not.
Into taking that. But I definitely agree, and there's definitely a time and place for that. Like, there's nothing better than that first warm day in the springtime or whatever.
No.
Sunday afternoon or whatever, you hop in the car and you're going for a drive, and you got all the upbeat songs on the playlist there. But I just think it was kind of compounded by the fact that because so many of us, or all of us, were in quarantine and our lives were changed because, maybe work was remote, or maybe things were canceled. Like, we were spending a lot of time alone, and as music fans, that just increased the amount of time we were listening to music too. And I definitely think it mattered just a little bit more, because it was almost, in a weird way, it was a supplement for the human interaction that you weren't getting, in a way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That just kind of filled the void of interaction, and allows you. And I think we saw a lot of the times, and I think we're going to touch on it in another episode, the shutdown shows that we did, and a lot of bands did this, where they had live concerts, and they're still doing it, live concerts on the web. And I think that, the reason I love live concerts is because everybody's there doing the same thing together, and it's like a shared energy. And the same thing with viewing something online. And you saw a lot of people kind of listening and watching together to feel connected to music. And that was a beautiful sight. Like, we're going to talk more about the shutdown shows, but I'm excited to talk about that, because that was a great thing that came out of the pandemic. And you can't say that for a lot of things, really. Yeah,
exactly. Because, when your hand is forced and you don't have that big communal activity, you have to find ways to maybe, tap into that another way. And not being able to go to shows for people that are, used to going to shows all summer and really feeling that communal energy. And certainly for the artists, not being able to get on a stage and share in that experience, because I think, they feel it just as much, if not probably more than the audience does, that big communal moment. And I think there were so many parts of life over the last, 12 or 13 months that, the traditional way was taken away, and, we had to find different ways to express ourselves or to feel certain things. And I think music definitely played a big role in that.
I was looking back at some stuff earlier today, some posts, and I came up, I was just randomly looking through, and I came up to Scott Weiland's anniversary on the 3rd of December, and I think I posted something, and the quote was, "The thing is, unfortunately, I write the best songs when I'm miserable." That was a quote by Scott Weiland. And it got me thinking, there's just so much sorrow in the music writing from the genre that we love, and it's a very interesting quote. And I'm wondering what kind of music is going to come out of this past year that we can look back on and be like, this music came from, just like grunge, very specific time and place. Like, we're going to be in 20 years, we're going to look back and you're going to have the pandemic music and music that came out of isolation. And that's going to be really interesting to kind of, keep an eye out for.
Yeah, that's a great point, because there's definitely, there were some common themes of life over the past year that, pretty much everybody was experiencing, and certainly, different artists and writers were writing on those concepts and those feelings. And that's something that I'm really interested to kind of see how that shapes out, because, we were all going through this thing together. And, maybe, in 6 months' time or a year's time, if people start releasing the things that they were writing on, it kind of might allow it, to express itself to us a little bit better, or we might understand it a little bit more, to kind of tap into that, this artist I don't even know is able to explain my life better to me than I can explain my life to myself. You know how many times that's happened where you listen to a song and like you might be going through something and like you listen to a song and you're like, that's it. Like they just explain it. Like they don't know me. They don't know my struggle right now, but it makes perfect sense.
But here
now.
they are. Yeah.
But here they, yeah, exactly. They just pop up at the most random times. I know we've all probably had those experiences, but yeah, it'll be really interesting. Particularly, the music that maybe came from it and the music that comes from the period right afterwards. So, and I think anytime I go through a struggle, for example, as soon as I'm out of it, or as soon as I turn the page, it doesn't feel as difficult as it was when I was in it, or I kind of forget. Like, I kind of think it's analogous to if you've ever had like a really, really difficult workout for a sport, or a difficult lift or something very physically challenging. As soon as you're done with it, it doesn't feel as bad because you're finished. So I definitely think for me, there's always that element, it's like if I go through a really tough time, like once I'm done, I don't know if it's I just forget about it or if I'm choosing to kind of forget about it. But do you feel the same way? That once you get through something, it's like, oh, like that wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's not that bad, or it wasn't that long of a time. I mean, people talk about how it feels like it's been forever, but it's been only a year since the pandemic has started. So
yeah.
Same thing with even like college, like good things, like it goes by and you look back and you're like, it just goes by quick. So, I mean, yeah, I think that, when bad things kind of come into life, when it's done, you realize that, I don't know, it was just a moment, it's a moment that passes, and sometimes that's really kind of what I cling to during those times. I know there's a song by Weezer called "This Too Shall Pass." Yeah. I think we've talked about it. I like listening to that song when I don't think things are going my way per se, and it's just a good reminder that this too shall pass. Like this pandemic, although it didn't seem like it was going to pass, like it seemingly on the rise. It's getting better, and at some point, life is going to be different. And what that looks like, but it's gonna pass, and things are gonna mend over, and that is true in a lot of facets of life.
And that's actually a really great point, and that kind of serves the other side of that coin, where we started this conversation off by talking about music that kind of complements how shitty things can be at points, but also when you're in those moments, you can come across some music that maybe gives you some clarity, like, hey, like this is going to end. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I had an exact identical story, except it wasn't the Weezer song. But for me during the pandemic, it was All Things Must Pass by George Harrison. And I listened to that song. And there's a live version on YouTube that he did right before he died on VH1, just him and an acoustic guitar. And I watched that thing so many times. And I think that's, more powerful than even, music's power to kind of complement sadness is its power to, give you messages of hope or clarity when, you might not feel that, or you might not be able to get those messages anywhere else in your life. And I definitely think that's probably the strongest thing that I'll take away from it. Is that, music is able to serve just as much as it's able to serve one purpose to make things, maybe worse and make you feel them more. It also serves that purpose to make things a little bit better.
Yeah, that's great. I was kind of thinking as we were talking that I would love to hear what, other people think about this, or how they we should, maybe make a little post or something for people to kind of respond to what they were listening to, or how the music has helped, a little discussion board of some sort. Because, I like talking about it with you, and I think that a lot of other people would be able to, get a lot out of it too. Because
because we all have experiences with it. This is something that we all went through, and it's kind of funny. Something that I've thought about as the pandemic has gone on, and I've struggled in my own way, just as everybody else has struggled in their own way. Is like, I think sometimes we're always kind of told that whenever you struggle, there's some grand lesson that you're going to learn from it. And this is probably the first time that I've like gone through a tough time where once you get to the other side and you get through it, like, I don't really feel that there was like a grand lesson. The only thing that I guess I learned was that I can endure it and make it through. I think we spoke about this on a recent podcast, but the Mark Lanigan lyric, always keeping the dogs off. Yeah. I mean, that's like, I guess you just find sometimes that, all you learned is that you're still able to keep the dogs off. And I think that's enough. I think a lot of times people always try to search for this big grandiose lesson that you might learn from something, but sometimes just making it through and living to see the next day is just as important, and maybe even the most important thing that you can experience from a tough time. And I think music plays its part in that, and you can kind of glean that from some songs. I mean, how many songs have been written about enduring and surviving and kind of making it through to the next day? There's certainly a lot of subject matter on that, even in the genre of grunge. But do you feel the same way, or how do you feel? Did you learn anything from your experiences the past year?
Yeah, I think I would say learning something particular, maybe not so much, but I do think there's a lot of fruit that have came out of it. And I'm definitely a glass full type of guy. I like the brighter side, and so I'm always gonna be like, this pandemic gave us the shutdown shows, and it gave us a way to interact differently with music, and it probably it spurred a lot of probably our growth within this page, or it kind of spurred certain things. I mean, you have to move closer to family for something, like random things that I wouldn't. You just kind of give credit towards the pandemic. So, as far as a big lesson though, I don't really know. I would just say the same as you, like, we are stronger than we think, and, life is going to do a lot of this. So, we just had a down spot, and then you just know you got to ride it out, and it will come, the sun will come up in the morning. And I think that it's just a reminder. Sometimes that's all you can get out of those bad times too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm reminded of a post that you made on the page. This must have been back in March or April. I think you know which one I'm going to talk about. You posted Mayonnaise by the Smashing Pumpkins. Is that the one?
It is. Yeah.
Do you have what you had said at the time written down?
I don't have it written down exactly. I was kind of writing down like a few of the bands that I was listening to, and I was going to ask, and I put down Smashing Pumpkins and Hum and like Dinosaur Junior, were the kind of like the melodramatic, kind of heavier tone music. But yes, right. I remember writing a post. I was losing my dog at that time to old age. She was a 3-legged dog that we had for my whole childhood, and I was losing. And everybody knows when they lose their childhood dog that they grew up with, that it's not an easy time. It's very difficult. And I remember Mayonnaise came on, and just listening to guitar and Corgan, it was difficult. It was just, I don't know. There's something about that type of kind of, I don't know, the and kind of like the emo rock. Yeah, really gets me. That's the type of music that I like. Really softer stuff, but that type of stuff is just kind of like it's like a boil. It almost feels like the water's boiling inside of me. And
absolutely,
and I remember. Do you remember exactly what?
I just pulled it up, actually.
I would say it looks like you're pulling it up. So
yeah. So
go ahead.
So what you said, it's funny. So you posted this on April 17th, so almost a year ago, and that was still in the early stages of the pandemic, but it was certainly at the point where I think we had all realized that life was going to change for a while, and a lot of people were going to suffer. And unfortunately, a lot of people were going to lose people close to them. And I think this was around the time one of our close mutual friends had actually suffered a close loss, someone in his family. And you said,
and we had and also like, sorry, cut you off. Go ahead. I think that there was like, we had both been a year removed from what we had normally been doing to take a step out in like our careers and what we were pursuing. Yes. And all of a sudden the pandemic, like for a lot of reasons, was not in a good position, but it took our life and just kind of like was kind of threw everything to the side, and all of a sudden
automatically just reached the end of the line, and you didn't expect it. I know for me, like this was the exact week, like my career
after. Yeah. A month after like the shock phase where we're like, oh my gosh, like this is how it's going to be for a year.
Yeah. Or for a foreseeable point of time. And I remember this was the exact week, like my career trajectory had changed pretty much that week. You know, people had left the town that I was in. Somebody who was in my life at the time, chose to no longer be in my life moving forward. And there were just so many different things going on. And you said, I remember, here it is. You said about the song Mayonnaise, you said, this song is hitting hard tonight. A lot seems to be happening all at once. It seems life does this periodically, where bad news and hard times sync up to stop you in your path. But in reality, when is a good time for loss? And unfortunately, sad things happen every day. Only time can heal. And, you know, that's so true, because you think about it and all of these terrible things were happening and how horrible it is. And it stinks, because I feel like whenever bad things happen, they always seem to sync up at the same time, you know, and there's never a good time for things to happen. And it was weird because, once again, kind of similar, like that little anecdote kind of explained the things that I think I was feeling at the time, where, you know, I wasn't able to understand it or explain it myself, but just like reading somebody else say it, you know, or listening to somebody else sing it, for example, it kind of gives some clarity. And you're like, you know what, like these things happen and they're happening. And sometimes we just got to give it time, like you said. And, you know, we didn't really have any other choice at the time. And just to see the process through and fight through and just make it through the day. But yeah,
that was a tough little moment. That song, I remember that really affecting me. And we had sent that post back and forth to each other. There's a few posts that kind of circulate between what we send back and forth, and that one hung around for a little bit. You know, for better or for worse. Yeah,
but we're still here.
Yeah, we are. And like I said, I mean, time does heal, and I think that, I mean, I know I can confidently say that we're both in a much different place this time of year. Yeah. And it's really refreshing because of all the things we just talked about. It does get better, it does pass, and it's kind of it's very satisfying when you get there.
Absolutely, yeah. And just the patience that it takes, but when things do come again, you know, and I think now, just the way that the calendar broke up, you know, spring is here again, and you know, we're fighting through, and hopefully, you know, things will begin to get back closer to normal, and hopefully, you know, people's suffering will be assuaged as time moves forward, and that's all you can hope for. But here we are in April 2021. We've survived, and if you're listening to this, you have too. So as the great Eddie Vedder once said, we're all still alive. But we are here.
That's amazing. So I say we switch gears. Yeah. Unless, is there anything else you wanted to?
No, I think that's it. But we do have something that we have to talk about. If people pay attention to the page, I think it was last year we started getting in the habit on April 1st, which, if you don't know,
it might have been 2 years,
couple years. Yeah,
I think we've always posted,
stirred the pot,
a certain someone on the first.
Yeah. So if you don't know by now, we do enjoy stirring the pot. We do enjoy antagonizing from time to time, and we very much enjoy shit posting when we can. We try to pick our spots, but April 1st is like, you know, Christmas, New Year's, the 4th of July, and Eddie Vedder's birthday, all rolled up into one. And we had ourselves a day on the page, Ethan. And if you follow the page, you'll remember this. It was totally unplanned. I think it was
totally unplanned.
Started as a normal day.
It was last Thursday, right?
Yes.
And we've been doing this thing because Thursday is the day before we release our podcast, and we've been the past couple weeks we randomly have clung on to Primus' song "Here Come the Bastards," and we love it so much. Primus has done so much for me in the last month and a half. I never thought they could. Yeah. And we've been posting it, and here they come. And to no surprise, Chris and I, we're the bastards, and we're coming.
We're on our way.
So we start off normal. We posted a few, like, you know, a little confusing, cryptic posts, and then at some point in the afternoon, I'm sorry, you actually started the day off with the post.
I did start the day off with a Creed post. As is customary on April 1st. I've been doing that for a few years, just to get a rise out of the people. But the Creed slander, first of all, I don't buy into it, because everybody has listened to Creed at one point and been at worst okay with it, and at best they've loved it. Creed kind of rocks. So
hey, you said
I said it. I can't take it back.
6 feet ain't that far off.
it ain't so far down. So I posted that, and then we kind of went back to the normal thing. But you kicked it off, and something that I was very surprised about was that people like the band Korn.
Listen, that was a can. That was something that it was like the first time you opened Primus, you had no idea what you were getting into.
Oh, absolutely.
I had no idea what I was getting into when I posted Korn. So the timeline, I wrote some stuff down, because we broke Instagram for that day. Halfway, like I said, about halfway through, we were talking, and we're like, you know what, like, let's just, like, today's April 1st, like, anything you want to post for something that excited, and we're like, let's do this. So
the gloves came off in a big way.
And I posted Limp Bizkit first. I pulled up a video from Woodstock 99, posted Limp Bizkit, and at the end of the day, I posted in the span of 1 hour. I posted Limp Bizkit, then I posted Korn, and then Slipknot, and
like
within
the
the hour,
holy trinity.
apparently. And that Limp Bizkit song got over 13,000 likes, and over, I think, 500 comments.
I've got it right here. 760 comments.
760 comments on a Limp Bizkit post. And it had over 2,300 shares, which blew my mind. 2 posts later, so right there, I was in the form of, like, I was like, oh, Limp Bizkit. Like, it was kind of like, I don't know, it was just an April Fool's post. But then a third post, I posted Korn, and I was like, what's up with Korn? I was like, I don't really get it. Or I said something on the lines of that.
Yeah.
And that's all it took.
Yeah, and the people were off and running.
The dams were breaking everywhere. There was over 700 comments, and it was just crazy. It blew up. It was amazing.
It's
I had no idea what was going on.
So full disclosure, I have never in my life ever voluntarily chosen to listen to either Limp Bizkit or Korn. So I don't really know anything about them. But I was surprised.
You didn't have a Limp Bizkit phase at all in high school?
I must have missed the bus for that one.
Somehow I was graced with a Limp Bizkit phase.
Oh,
for
man.
A bit.
Yeah. Well, apparently thousands of other people. People went through it too. But I never went through phases of any of these bands that we posted. But that was the best part about it, because it's a lot of fun to post polarizing bands. So we posted, you hit him with your Trinity, and then you had to step away for a little bit. So I took the reins, and naturally I started with Kid Rock.
We switched places because you were working out, and then I had to go work out, and you were like, here I go. So the same thing happened to me, where, like, you came back and you're like, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know. And then I came back like 2 hours later. I was like, what happened, Chris? You're like, I don't know. Here I go again.
So we hit him with Kid Rock, and then naturally we ascended to, what is the pinnacle of the Grunge Bible shit posting. We posted How You Remind Me by Nickelback.
Yes, which is funny, because I have that drafted up and I couldn't post it because you had already posted it. I was like, I guess I'm going to have to post this randomly in like 2 weeks when people forget.
We were thinking the same thing. And then I moved on. I wasn't really sure where to go. I decided that Papa Roach wasn't a bad place to go. So I posted an absolutely horrendous live version.
A bad place to go.
I posted an absolutely horrible version of Last Resort by Papa Roach. And then after that, then you hit him with the Puddle of Mud, which is a fan favorite. She Hates Me. Which, here's the thing. I just said about 5 minutes ago that I like Creed. Puddle of Mud, like Blurry and She Hates Me, they kind of rock.
They slap. Everybody, we all know the lyrics.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's true. Like these songs are born out of fact.
She does hate me.
It doesn't take long either. Then after that, I think we hit him with a double shot of Creed. One of them was Scott Stapp singing the national anthem of the United States, but then
absolutely, I don't know if you noticed this in the stats for that one. So the two Creed ones got 300 and 600 comments respectively.
Yeah,
but the national anthem got over 5,000 shares.
That's unbelievable.
It was sent 5,000 times to people.
And
the Kid Rock was just under 4,000 times. So people were sending this to other people.
Yeah, it was evangelization.
Like usually we get a lot of likes or a lot of comments, but the shares, like, that one's always interesting to me. Like which ones get sent around. That was huge.
Oh, absolutely. But I think my favorite video of the entire day was Creed performing at halftime of the Dallas Cowboys Thanksgiving game in 2001. And
yes,
if you haven't seen this video, you need to drop everything that you're doing right now and look it up. So Creed, and they performed Higher amongst a couple of other songs. The other couple ones are escaping me, but I mean this video is just straight gas, Ethan.
Did you know all the songs that they performed at halftime that they're escaping you right now?
I definitely know. Like,
you watched the full performance?
I have not watched the full one. I haven't been able to get off a Higher. I just keep watching it over and over again. That's what they let in with. But like they have all of these acrobats, and this was shortly after 9/11, so everybody's draped in like red, white, and blue. Even though it doesn't really have much of an application to Creed, obviously. But I mean, this video is just unbelievable. But somebody commented, so Scott Stapp is wearing a Dallas Cowboys jersey in this video. And I need to pull this comment up right now because it's absolutely amazing. So yes. Kyle Brandt, who's a football reporter, he commented that Scott Stapp apparently chose to wear a jersey with the number 11 on it because he had 2 number 1 hits at that time and he wanted to brag about it. So he had the 2 1s on the jersey.
Yes.
to denote that he had not 1 but 2 number 1 hits.
And you know what, Chris, as we like to say in the competition world and a bunch of stuff, no one can ever take that away from him.
No one can take that away from for as long as it goes. He
had 2 number 1 hits. And whose fault is that? All of us.
Yeah.
All of you.
Everybody.
People that say they didn't. Yeah, they're liars.
Yeah. Where were you?
2 type of people in this world. There's people that love Creed, and then there's the liars.
Absolutely. So, everybody's to blame, but like you said, it's in the history books and it can't be taken away. So that was probably my favorite video.
So that day we that was really good. I thought for sure you were gonna talk about the whatever guitar solo you
played. We gotta get to that one. Can I talk about it now?
Yes, you said that to me and I was like, I just started laughing. I didn't know what was going on. I loved it.
So that video, and we're going to need to share these links so people can watch them as they listen to this podcast, or maybe post them again. Who cares? This guitar solo is Nick Jonas. I think it was at the CMAs in like 2015 or something, and it is one of the most abysmal guitar solos of all time. I think the girl who's singing is like Kelsey Ballerini or something is her name. She's a country act. And she was singing this song live and Nick Jonas was accompanying her on lead guitar, which was a big mistake. He comes out to rip a solo. He's got a really, really nice Fender Telecaster. He comes in, he hits a couple of notes and then everything just goes downhill. I mean, it's only like a 12-second solo, but it was 12 seconds of pain.
He froze up. It was like started playing, and you can see like he had to stop to like hear. He had to hear the song like where they were at, so he could try to pick back up. And just like that, his moment was over.
And like, I'm not a good guitarist. I've never been in that moment, but I imagine probably the moment you start thinking about it, like that's it. It's like sports when you get the yips. Like if you're thinking about something and you just have one bad thought, next thing you know, you're in the tubes there. And I think that's what happened to him. Because I'm sure. I mean, he wouldn't have gotten that role if he wasn't a passable guitarist. So hopefully, you know what I want? I want to see him at some point have his chance at redemption and just rip that solo on that song. Somebody's got to give him some vindication here.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. That was great.
Yeah,
that was really funny.
Yeah, and that was pretty much the end of the line. Although we did sneak in we snuck in some cumbersome naturally.
I say it's 7 Mary Tree. I think so. A total we had 17 posts in that the April 1st day. 17 full posts,
which is a lot more than we normally do.
None of which were the closest thing we got to grunge was I posted Tool for like a Danny Carey and MJ. It was less of a it was just a final post of the night. I gave him something to be excited about, because who doesn't love Tool?
Exactly.
But so about 16 posts of just
mayhem.
posting.
Yeah.
And how many comments how many comments did we get for the day?
I did the math the next day, and by the next morning we had over 4,000 comments on those 17 posts. So that was the biggest day of engagement that we've ever had on the page at any point. So I also imagine, if I remember correctly, we did lose very many followers that day.
That's what I wanted to check.
We lost like 550 followers that day, but it was totally worth it. Like, I mean,
net loss?
No, it was not a net loss, but I think we ended up gaining about 100, so it was totally worth it. But like, even if we
ended up positive.
No, we always end up positive, Ethan. But honestly, if we lost 10,000 followers for it, it still would have been worth it. We've been running this page for such a long time that sometimes the most fun thing to do is to post something like that and get the locals a little riled up, because there's a very definitive line of demarcation where there's the people that get it and that go along with it or that find it funny, and then there's the people that are offended by it, like when we post Kid Rock, or when we post even when we post like Fish or something just for the hell of it, which we did. And it never ceases to amaze me, and I think this could be an episode all its own, but it never ceases to amaze me how upset people will get at something they see on their phone screen on a social media account.
They surprise me as well. Yeah, people get really
they don't like it
out of shape.
They don't like it. Like I've gotten go ahead.
Dang it. So basically I scroll by and I'll be like, if I see something I don't like, I just scroll. Like it takes a lot for me to be like, I've definitely unfollowed big accounts and stuff for certain reasons, but like that, I'm usually like, if someone posts something, I just kind of scroll by and like, they'll do better next time. And
man, strikes and gutters, just like just like the dude said, life goes on, man. You can't be worried about that stuff. But I mean, some of these people, and the best part is we can talk freely about this because none of them are listening to the podcast right now because they're not with us anymore. Right. I mean, some of these people get so angry. Like I've gotten very not nice messages on my personal account. They've sought me out and they've let me know their displeasure that I've posted a band they didn't like, or maybe a song they didn't like, or maybe I post a little bit too much of a band that they don't think is as good as the other bands that we should be posting more of. That one happens all the time.
Oh my God. The best is when you make a montage and you're like, how did you leave out this person? And
what about Scott? What about Scott? And what happened to him?
And all you can say is like, there wasn't enough room. I didn't make this. Like, what I mean?
I don't care.
That too.
Yeah. So we have a lot to say about this topic, and we definitely we also know some people who probably have a lot to say about this topic. So I'm definitely sensing an episode in the future about the trials and tribulations of running various social media pages. I think that one would be fun. So if you guys want to hear more about that, we would definitely be excited to do that. But yeah, April 1st was a good day. We're generally speaking, we're on it for 364 days out of the year. So if you give us one day, I think that's a pretty fair trade-off. I don't know what the percentage is on that, but I mean, the followers are definitely getting the better end of that bargain.
Yeah, not that we owe them anything.
We don't owe them absolutely nothing.
Because, in reality, Chris, we started this page so we could freely share what we wanted. And now,
just so we didn't have to piss off our friends.
For some reason, we've grown, and now we can't do that?
Yeah,
that's not how.
We're making the rules. I'll post Primus whenever the hell I want to post Primus.
Yeah, you don't want me to post the same song every day or same song.
Here's the same song again.
I love when we do that. When we into that stuff, it just provides it is just funny.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm glad that people do get behind it too. I think.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, like with how much serious shit is going on in people's lives. An Instagram page that they listen to, 2-decade-old music on should not be contributing to the serious problems in your life. So if it is, might be time for a reevaluation. But the nice part is This is a safe space. Everyone who's listening to this podcast probably likes us, or, if they don't like us, maybe they've even left the podcast by now. But
if you're still here,
we've got some ways that if you'd like to support us, there's some different avenues.
We really appreciate you. So yeah, Chris, we forgot to do this in the beginning. We forgot to thank our sponsors.
Yeah, Ethan, we have a very special sponsorship announcement for this episode.
Yes.
Who is this episode sponsored by today?
As one of our favorite bands will say, same old ship it was back then. This pod is sponsored by us.
By us. So what that means is we
don't have any sponsors.
We have no sponsors as of yet, but
which is fine. We haven't done anything to get sponsors. I think we like doing. We've always. I mean, we just. There's nothing to sponsor. But now there is.
Now there is, because we've spoken about it. So for all of you entrepreneurial types out there, if you're seeing dollar signs right now, which you should be, please contact us if you're interested in some sponsorship for this podcast. And if you're not, there's some other ways that you can support us. Actually, we do have merchandise. The merchandise link is listed prominently on our website, grungebible.com. But additionally, the most direct way that you can support the podcast here is through our Patreon page. So that is also linked in the description of our podcast on the podcast landing pages on the streaming sites. It's also on grungebible.com and a few different places. So there's 3 tiers at which you can give, and you can choose your tier if you like what we're doing here on the pages or on the podcast. And everything that you send us, everything that you choose to contribute on a monthly basis will be used for streaming services. It'll be used to pay our producer, anything, equipment that we'll need in the future. You guys can directly contribute to making this podcast better and increasing the longevity of it. We're hoping that we're able to do it for a while, and we've gotten into a good groove so far. And if you're enjoying it so far and you feel inclined that you'd like to support us in any way, we really appreciate it. And it'll go a really long way to making this more sustainable.
And I think the best thing that gives us is kind of a peace of mind that people support us, people like us, and just having the knowing that people are, taking in what we can produce is really great. So at minimum, just keep leaving comments, keep letting us know that you guys actually like what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, if it's not the Patreon, we'd love it if you subscribed to our YouTube channel. Right. If you have an Apple Podcast account, you can subscribe there, follow us on Spotify, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. All of those things do go a long way, and they're definitely encouraging to us to make some more.
We just hit 1,000 followers on Spotify. Didn't
we do. We officially have over 1,000 followers on Spotify, and have some really big news as of yesterday, April 6th.
This is huge, guys.
The Grunge Bible Podcast is officially the #1 music commentary podcast in the country of El Salvador. So no one can take that away from us. We've done it.
Next week, I'm wearing a jersey with #1 on it.
So if we chart again, we're gonna have to steal Scott Stapp's number 11 jersey, because we'll be #1 in 2 countries. So keep them coming, keep the engagement coming. We really appreciate it. We have one more segment here before we shove off for the day.
Oh, that's right.
Song of the week, Ethan. What is your song of the week?
Song of the week, some stuff I've really been into. Talked about it multiple times on this podcast already, but it's Dinosaur Junior. They have a song. They have an album coming out April 23rd called Sweep It Into Space. And they've released 2 singles, and they're both great. Garden just came out the other day, and I've been listening to it, and it's great. It's different than what they usually sound like. It has a little bit of a different kind of guitar bass to it.
Yep.
And it's awesome. And then they have the other song, I Ran Away, and it came out a few weeks ago, and they're both awesome. They're both really great. And new album April 23rd. I'm loving it. I'm really excited. So
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, give it a good listen, and I'm sure you guys will like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, anything coming from the hands of Jay Mascis is something that's worth appreciating and worth listening to.
100%.
Definitely excited for that. I mean, Dinosaur Junior, they've been at it for a long time, so I'm very thankful that they're still with us and still making music.
And they're touring. So if anybody wants Dinosaur Junior concert meetup, maybe this fall, let us know. Absolutely.
Yeah, we got to make that happen.
We already got our tickets going to see Dinosaur Junior in September.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. We're just overflowing with excitement. Yep. But how about you, Chris? What are you listening to right now? Song of the week.
Song of the week. This is not a new song by any means. It came out in 1994, but there's a band. I'm just turning the clock back a little bit, stuck in the past as usual.
That's right.
There's a band called Superchunk that came from North Carolina. They were an indie rock, like college rock band, and they had an album come out in 1994. Called Foolish, and there's a song on there called Driveway to Driveway, and it is just a absolutely classic, like alt rock 90s twinge of indie, just mainly alt rock, just great song. So Driveway to Driveway by Superchunk, that's my song of the week. I listened to it.
I love that.
I had first come to realize who Superchunk were like a year and a half ago. And then this one just came back to me a couple days ago, and I've been spamming it in the car. I'll probably be tired of it by Saturday, but who cares? For now, it's the song of the week.
That means that it has importance if you get tired out. That's good.
Exactly.
I got an idea, Chris.
Let's hear it.
Let's. So I was thinking about how we can share these. We gotta make a playlist and just start adding the songs of the week.
Absolutely.
We can populate that so you guys can follow along. And listen, and we'll just all of a sudden have this badass playlist come, a couple months down the road. So
it'll be great. So I think that does it for this episode. I mean, this episode had a little bit of everything. We started out pretty much down in the dumps, and we were fairly serious. But I think in the spirit of April 1st and posting Limp Bizkit and Korn on a page called Grunge Bible, we certainly veered off course a little bit. But this was fun. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. And we will be back next week.
Again, thank you guys for listening. You guys mean the world to us. Rock and roll, as always.
Rock and roll. Take care, everybody, and we will talk to you soon.